So, what have we covered here today? Well, let's do it this way. Good, because it's distracting us. The first thing we've covered is we started about talking about the difference between management and leadership and the difference between these two things. Then we migrated into moving to understanding that the world has changed. Went from the marketplace to the product to the customer to all of these existing on a platform. We then started talking a bit about, so what is the value we bring as people who are customer-driven, market-facing? The value we bring is true intimacy and connection in the market that we serve. But there is still a piece that's missing. And the missing piece is this. The missing piece is we need to convert what we now know into a language that our stakeholders must understand. This is the conversation I want to have with you now. Me being the finance guy, it's got to make sense in terms of an equation. So here's the equation. In finance and management accounting specifically, we have this measure we use called a DOL, a degree of operating leverage. And the idea is that there should be a leverage to an additional unit of something happening. If I were to sell one more unit of this, what is the leverage, additional, marginal, that this unit gives me? The reason this is important is because marketers tend to talk about investment without talking about leverage. You're going and asking for the business to give you the budget, but you're not demonstrating it in terms of leverage, additional, new. So how do we calculate this? Follow me, I'll explain it. The degree of operating leverage is counted in the following way. You take your contribution margin and you divide it by your net operating income. Let's break both of these down. Contribution margin. This here is a cup of coffee. It's great, by the way. It's a bit cold. If I could have another one, that would be fantastic with some honey. I like my coffee with honey. Let's learn us a few thoughts here. So let's imagine, sir, your name? Donald. Oh, man. What a name. Ladies and gentlemen, meet my friend Donald, the big D, the Diesel, the D-Don. Donald and I are going to start a coffee business called the Big D. We're going to make ourselves these cups of coffee. We're going to have one outlet down Mombasa Road, and we're going to make 10,000 Kenya shillings a month income. Say again?
Too little.
Too little?
Let's go up.
What is this thing? Hold on, baby. I know you got that Trump head on, but it is. We're going to start at 10 million Kenya shillings a month. Right? Donald and I are going to sit around the table and we're going to have a conversation about should we open a second store? Yeah? And the conversation is going to go something like this. Well, if we open a second store, what are the fixed costs and what are the variable costs? We need to open the store, set it up, etc. But once it's set up, we need to run it. Yeah? And I'm going to suggest to Donald that actually, D, what we should do is have an additional online platform where we can deliver to customers, new customers, from the existing store. He will say, but a new store will deliver us new revenue. I will say, a new revenue stream will deliver us new revenue. Here is the difference. If we open a new store, then we need that new store to add an additional contribution margin. However, the only way to calculate contribution margin is to go, what is the revenue minus the variable cost? He will argue that a new store will deliver for us $10 million, 10 million shillings. And I'll go, great. But you've still got to subtract the fixed cost for this. So actually the net revenue is not really that. Whereas if we simply say to people, buy online, then what happens is almost immediately, every shilling we earn, you only have to subtract the ingredients cost for that coffee. But there are no fixed costs. Does that make sense? Yeah. So the business case then is the revenue minus the variable cost to deliver us the contribution margin. And if we divide that by our net operating income, it follows that if this grows and that stays the same, we have a higher degree of operating leverage. And so the discussion between he and I isn't whether or not to open a new store or to create a platform, is which of these two strategies delivers for us a higher DOL. I want to submit here today, if you're a startup founder trying to get a large corporate to work with you, have a DOL conversation. You can get to the customer insights a bit later. Talk to them around degree of operating leverage. Help them understand why, because what this in effect tells you is that you're leaving money on the table. That there is something you could do that would give you more leverage from existing infrastructure. And let me tell you, every single large organization has this. If you're a marketing team and you're looking for some capital to do that budget, this is the way to approach it. This is the additional, the contribution, the degree to which your operating leverage will change. Because ultimately, if you think about it, you have to do three things to convince whatever team you want to convince to change. The first thing you have to do is convince them that you're either going to save them time, or you're going to save them resources, or you're going to save them the energy to run the organization. These are the three things it comes down to. Change is driven ultimately by these three things. And so in your value proposition, how are you framing it? What are you saving? The easiest of these to sell, resources. All companies are worried about resources, capital, money. They're worried about this. Show them you can do more with less. Or time. We can get there faster. We can do it more efficiently. Pardon?
It's the best coffee in the world.
It is. It's good coffee. It's good coffee. And so the point I'm making here is that perhaps sometimes you need to recognize that the problem you're trying to solve is broken. And so if the problem is broken, necessarily we're going to arrive at the incorrect solution. How are we doing, by the way? We're still getting value? Yes. Should I carry on?
Yes.
Great. Let me introduce to you these two companies. Both of them should be familiar, particularly to those of you here that travel. McDonald's and Shake Shack. If you think about the McDonald's business, when was it built? Watch the movie The Founder. When was McDonald's built? 50s and 60s. What was happening in that era? Mass production, efficiency. Do you get it now? If you find organizations that were started at that time, you will notice that they generally tend to be driven by mass production and efficiency. Generally. It's part of their DNA. It's the raison d'être, as they say. But McDonald's was started in that time. And in that time, around the 50s and the 60s, efficiency and being efficient at production was what was the ticket to the game. So this is why they will deliver that burger to you as quickly as they will deliver it. I mean, let's be clear. You don't go to McDonald's for a culinary experience. The world's largest fast food company doesn't sell real food. A McDonald's burger is so fake I could fax it to you. You would print the fax, shred it, and consume it. It would have the same nutritional value. Did you know that McDonald's is the only company in the world that has a license from Coca-Cola to sell fake Coca-Cola? Did you know this? Hands up if you knew this. Yeah, McDonald's is the only company in the world that has a license from Coca-Cola to sell fake Coca-Cola. They get the little syrup from Coca-Cola, and they make their own blend as you buy it. Now, if you don't believe me, try this. Buy a McDonald's Coca-Cola, buy real Coca-Cola. Spill or consume the real Coca-Cola, whichever of these two works for you. And then put the real Coca-Cola in the McDonald's Coca-Cola in the real Coca-Cola bottle. Seal it tight. And leave it for 24 hours. Open it and see what's happened. It's as flat as Joe Biden falling in Delaware. So I couldn't resist. When I was preparing for this last night, I was like, I need to find a place for this joke. Where am I going to put this joke? So we've done Donald, now we've done Biden. So, they're the largest fast food company in the world. Their burgers are not great culinary experiences. Their Coke is not real. What do they sell? They sell efficiency. They sell the fact that the food is fast, right? So what do you think happens when a competitor says, actually, you can make a good quality product, understanding customer insights for the modern day? Because in the modern day, we here today, consumers and shoppers, go to the shop and actually check on the carton the nutritional value of the stuff we're buying. In the modern day, we here are buying supplementary products. In the modern day, if you're ill, you're not going to the doctor. You've got your own pharmacy in your house. You're self-diagnosing using Google. In the modern day, you're buying Herbalife products. In this day, you actually are worried about nutritional value. In that day, the food can't just be fast food anymore. It cannot just be fast food. It needs to be real food, but fast. Do you get it? And so if McDonald's was stuck, what would they have done? They would have opened more stores. They would have made their burgers quicker. They would have made their Cokes cheaper. They were smart enough to know that neither of these three things would work. What they did do was they created the new McDonald's franchise. For those of you who travel in Europe, you'll see it with a little green banner. That serves good quality, real food. So sometimes the solution is predicated by how we think and understand the problem. Can you help me now and jump forward, now that I've covered this? Sometimes the solution is predicated by how we think and understand the problem set that we're solving. Think and understand the problem set that you're solving. So here's a question for you that I'd like for you to make a note for yourself. Here's the question. What problem are you solving? What problem are you solving? Subtitle question, who told you that that was the real problem? Who told you that that was the real problem? What problem are you solving? And who told you that that was the real problem? Who told you that that was the real problem? I keep referencing my brother Julian because I think he and I are so aligned. He said something earlier about the number of startups that are failing, right? I think actually that what really happens in that experiment you were talking about is startup founders are figuring out that the problem they were solving is not the problem to be solved. That's actually really, if you think, that's all innovation is, isn't it? Innovation is the presumption of a problem, seeking a solution to it, and then figuring out that that's not the real problem. And so you keep asking the question, what is the problem until you find it? Until you actually find it. What is the problem that you're solving? What is the problem that you're solving? All of this comes down to that point I made earlier, that singularity, that you have to be able to fall in love. You have to be able to fall in love.